Our book is about poor and working class white people who in the 1960s and 1970s worked alongside the Black Panther Party for self-defense and the Young Lords organization in the original Rainbow Coalitions. The original Rainbow Coalitions were formations where each ethnic group would take responsibility for organizing their own community, their own neighborhoods, but come together for for common political work to confront poverty in the United States. A lot of these stories have been hidden in the footnotes of books about the Civil Rights Movement and books about the Black Panther Party and even the Young Lords. So quite hidden in these footnotes are stories that go very much against the narrative of what we hear about working class white people. Working class white people being automatically reactionary, automatically pro-war, automatically antagonistic to the civil rights and human rights of people of color. But these groups were very deeply inspired by their neighbors of color. Well, the term Hillbilly Nationalist was actually coined by the Young Patriots organization. The Young Patriots organization were a group of Southern descendant youth operating in what was then known as Hillbilly Harlem or Hillbilly Heaven in Chicago, otherwise known as the Uptown neighborhood. They adopted the Confederate flag but tried to reclaim it to be a symbol of rebellion, a symbol of autonomy for poor whites, but also in solidarity, believe it or not, with black and brown counterparts in other communities. So this is a story about Bob Lee, who was a field secretary for the Chicago Black Panther Party, spending time in Hillbilly Harlem, uptown neighborhood of Chicago, making common cause with the Young Patriots in their community. Late one spring evening, Bob Lee, field secretary for the Chicago Black Panthers, stood in a North Chicago church where the Panthers and Patriots were supposed to spend the evening hammering out political points of unity. Instead, Lee and the Patriots spent the whole meeting trying to convince poor white residents that the Panthers were allies, not threats. The crowd of uptown residents alternated between silence and vocal resistance to the proposal. Exhausted and knowing that the scene would be repeated on his own turf at a Panthers meeting later that night, Lee needed to get outside and walk. Outside the church, Bob Lee's instinct told him that he was being followed. He realized immediately he made a very big mistake by leaving alone. Almost immediately, two police officers approached him from behind. "You know what to do," they demanded. Lee put his hands up against the wall. Soon he was inside the squad car with a sneaking feeling he wasn't going to be cited and released down at the station. Looking up, he saw Patriots Chairman William Fesperin ushering men, women, and children out of the church. Were they hurrying home? Did they see Lee in the squad car? They did. And with no hesitation, the entire community surrounded the car and began to yell at the police, demanding Lee's release. Lee was awestruck as every single person from inside the church rallied in his defense. Despite their general fear about inviting black radicals into their community and long-held misunderstandings about the intent of black liberation, there was one thing that poor whites in Uptown understood. The police were a common enemy. And the cops let Lee go. Unplanned and spontaneous, but fully aware of the risk, the Patriots rank and file helped unarrest a virtual stranger. As Lee put it, "I'll never forget looking at all those brave white motherfuckers standing in the light of the police car and staring at the face of death." This proved the first of many risks the Patriots took as they tried to carve out a militant opposition to both racism and capitalism in white communities. Bob Lee, too, was fearless as he immersed himself in other communities, building rapport with a razor-sharp insight and unwavering patience. For a few weeks, he lived alongside the Patriots in Uptown. He advised them on setting up community programs and chipped away at people's ignorance, one home-cooked meal at a time. "I had to run with those cats, break bread with them, hang out at the pool hall," Lee said. "I had to lay down on their couch in their neighborhood then I had to invite them into mine. We're living in a very populist moment today, and people from all over the political spectrum, left, right, young, old, middle class, upper class, believe that there is a crisis, and because it's obvious just by walking outside that we're living in a gigantic crisis. And my co-author Amy and I believe that these organizations show how part of the way of how you win. That you don't write anybody off as being automatically racist or automatically reactionary, is that you go fight for hearts and minds, using one of the most profound tools that progressives have today, which is door-to-door organizing, neighborhood organizing, political education, and hands-on opportunities for people to learn that they can actually change the world, but most importantly, they can change the world with their neighbors, with their friends, with people across racial lines, and that's the legacy, that's reflected in the Young Patriots organization's work, and Rising Up Angry's work, in the history of Peggy Terry, who we write about, and other groups that were similar on the East Coast.